Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin today's ceremony. Please turn off your electronic devices or place them on silent mode. Good afternoon. On behalf of Colonel Jeff Manasco, 317th Airlift Wing Commander, I'd like to welcome you to the Purple Heart Medal Ceremony in honor of Staff Sergeant Jared Kerwin. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Pete Tassione, and I will be your narrator. We appreciate everyone joining us for this unique event as we are in unprecedented times adhering to social distancing requirements. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I'd like to introduce our distinguished guests in attendance with us today. Please hold your applause until all are introduced. The 317th Airlift Wing, Acting Command Chief, Chief Master Sergeant Jeremy Johnson. The 7th Bomb Wing, Vice Commander, Colonel Matt Newell. The 7th Bomb Wing Command Chief, Chief Master Sergeant Eric Duggar. We are especially pleased to have with us Staff Sergeant Kerwin's family, his wife Ashley, and his son Christopher. His parents, Lieutenant Colonel retired Kevin and Dr. Amanda Penrod. And his sisters McKenna and Ariana Penrod. Also joining us are Staff Sergeant Kerwin's friends, John Keelty and Samuel Lakowski. Finally, we would also like to welcome all of the family, friends, our own Hazard Airmen, and fellow Team Dias Warriors that have joined us virtually for this special occasion. At this time, I would like to introduce Colonel Jeff Manasco.
Thank you for the introduction, Chief Tassione. For all the special guests, whether you're in uniform from the 7th Bomb Wing or 317th, thank you for being here, especially as Chief Tassione welcomed the family members, Christopher, parents that are both here in person, and siblings, as well as hopefully you can hear and see us in virtual land, but there's also some parents and siblings watching Facebook Live. Thank you for participating, as well as some mentors and leaders, former football coach and physics teacher, and friends from back home. So thank you for everyone for being here on this special day. Very unique to award a Purple Heart, particularly in the Air Force. It's one of the oldest medals in the U.S. military. It started in the Continental Army under the command of General Washington. It's changed names numerous times over history, but for over 250 years, it's still with us today, and we know it as the Purple Heart. And it's awarded for sacrifice at the hands of our adversary or enemy, which is what we're here to discuss. And in the Air Force, it's not a common medal for good reasons. On the day of the event and while we're here, Sergeant Kerwin was in Afghanistan. Chief Tassione is going to talk about some of the events, but I just want to give you some context. I was not there, but I have a lot of friends that were, to include the Vice Wing Commander, who I've known for over a decade. It was the largest attack in somewhere between 5 to 10 years. It's a 10,000-pound improvised explosive device. Lucky for us, the Taliban, where they hit the T-wall, a big wall with gravel in it, referred to as HESCO barriers as well. It blew a hole in the wall, and lucky for us, it was in the wrong part of base that we had no longer operated. There were somewhere around a dozen attackers wearing suicide vests, and the gunfight lasted for approximately 16 hours. When the explosion took place, it knocked people out of their beds across the installation, particularly where our airmen were near where the explosion took place. A number of water pipes burst in the shock wave. Hangar doors were ripped off, multiple locations across the airfield. There was shrapnel that went well over a half mile away. Many airmen injured. Lucky for us, no one was killed. Gunfire lasted very heavy for the first few hours and literally for 16 hours. And it's not very often that you have close air support on your own airfield, but F-16s and helicopters were used to destroy the insurgents. And you can be proud of our airmen and soldiers defending the base. All the insurgents that attacked us that day were dispatched. So on that day, we all take an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. However, very rarely are we called upon to sacrifice where that physically harms you. For a number of folks, there are wounds that you may have inside, but to get hurt during an attack at the hands of the enemy is a different level of sacrifice. And on that day, Sergeant Kerwin was injured during the blast wave, and we're here to recognize that sacrifice of the oath that he took to defend our nation, and something that any of us are rarely called upon. But I think it speaks to all airmen in uniform, to include our civilians and contractors that deploy forward as well, that we all live for something much larger than ourselves. We're prepared for the ultimate sacrifice. And on that day in December, Sergeant Kerwin Lucky, it was not the ultimate sacrifice, but you did sacrifice at a level that none of us would hope for, but you were there, you were doing your duty, and here we are today. And we are thankful and honored by your service to our nation, and we're going to recognize that today. With that said, I'm going to hand it back over to Chief Tassio.
Thank you, Colonel Manasco. Staff Sergeant Kerwin was injured in the early morning hours of 11 December 2019 when Taliban suicide bombers detonated two vehicles laden with explosives at the site of a Korean medical facility that was under construction adjacent to Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan, while he was deployed and serving with the 774th Expeditionary Airlift Squadron, 405th Air Expeditionary Group, 445th Air Expeditionary Wing. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of the Purple Heart Medal. The United States of America, to all shall see these present greetings. This is to certify that the President of the United States of America, authorized by order of General George Washington, August 7th, 1782, has awarded the Purple Heart to Staff Sergeant Jared J. Kerwin for wounds received in action 11 December 2019, given under my hand 20 March 2020. Signed, Lieutenant General Joseph T. Gustella, Jr., Commander, United States Air Force Central Command. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. Please remain standing for the departure of the official party. Thank you for helping us overcome the challenges of the COVID-19 new abnormal and making this significant ceremony possible.